Welcome to Order Militarist Radio TV. We here are lifelong Catholics, and what we do here is all for free in the love of Jesus Christ, the Most Holy Trinity, and His Holy Church, and will defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Our work is the true sense of apostolate. Any funds raised goes back into this work for equipment. This helps us to give you an unbiased, hard-hitting truth that is not controlled by political correctness or interest groups. Today's topic is the Christian Party, and we welcome Brother Alexis Bonello to the show.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be on Order Militarist Radio TV and to talk about one of our favorite topics, Christian Party for America, because we're both members of an order dedicated to Christian liberty, and it is really no way forward for Christian liberty in America without a Christian party. So I think it's a great weekly show that we do on Tuesdays. I encourage everyone to tune in each week.
Yep. You're going to talk about get them interested.
Yeah, so I think the big reason why Christians are not as active in politics as our Lord Jesus Christ wants them to be is because we disconnect. Our faith is, we don't realize the obligations of Christian faith, okay? Now, being a Christian doesn't mean you have to rule the world, okay? Or that you have to become the king of your nation, okay? Because Christianity teaches us humility. But in a democracy, in a form of government where we have the right to vote, that means we have the duty to use that vote as a Christian. Okay, before there were automobiles, no one had the duty as a Christian to drive like a Christian. There wasn't an automobile, okay? With automobiles, then there came the whole thing among Christians. Well, we have to drive as Christians, not just as drivers. And some Christians forget that they be behind the wheel and they become like, a jihadi. They go wild behind the wheel. Some people can't control themselves. Others are extremely polite and they'll always slow down for that old lady who wants to cross the street, even if she's not on a crossing walk and things like that. Okay. But now we're talking about something much more serious than driving. It's called voting. And let's explain how our Christian faith requires us to use our vote as a Christian. Okay, so let's go to the parable of the Good Samaritan. This man gets beaten up. He's dumped on the side of the road. He's wounded, he's bruised. And a priest and a Levite, or you might say a deacon, go by and they say, well, I'm not going to have anything to do with him because if I touch the bleeding man, I'll be impure and I won't be able to do my prayers in the temple. So they walk by. And then comes a Samaritan who's a heretic. He's a Jewish heretic. Samaritans were Jews, but they were heretics. They mixed things into their religion that was idolatrous, okay? Kind of like Christians who mix in all kinds of different other religions into this thing. So it's really bad. On the level of religion, even Christ doesn't approve that. But nevertheless, he saw this man beaten up and he picked him up and put him on his donkey and took him to an inn and paid the innkeeper some money to take care of him for 2 days and said on his way back, he'd pay some more. And to see that the guy had a place to rest and eat and sleep until his own health cured himself. And they didn't have medicine or doctors back then. And our Lord teaches us this parable to tell us that it's very important to him that we help the innocent, the suffering, those victimized. And he's using this as a shock example. Okay, this is a parable. So in this parable, he's trying to shock his listeners. He's saying, look, even a Samaritan knows how to do this. So you Jews who are of the true religion, all the more you should do it. No, he's not saying, do it just like the Samaritan doing it. He's saying, since you're the true religion, you should be doing something even greater, okay? Now, if he said that to Jews who didn't believe in him or hardly followed him, how much more to us Christians now that he's died on the cross, rose from the dead, and ascended into heaven, where he said, on ascending, all power and all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me, and he sent us out to preach the gospel to all the world. Now, so as Christians, we have the duty to live as Christ's teaching. He is our king. We recognize that he is not just our king, he is the king of all men. Okay. That means he is the sovereign Lord of every nation. We Christians don't believe sovereignty comes from the people. We believe sovereignty comes from God, from Jesus Christ, not just from any God, but from Jesus Christ. And a nation that doesn't recognize him is disconnected from authority. Okay. It's either ignorant and it's not at fault, or it is not ignorant and it's in rebellion. Okay. So if a nation in its constitution doesn't recognize Jesus Christ, then its people better, or it has no hope. Okay. And if its people recognize Jesus Christ, but they don't form a political party that recognizes Jesus Christ, it's in vain they go to church and pray, because they're saying, I recognize you, Lord. And they step out of the church and they're saying, I don't recognize you, Lord. They're two-faced. Okay. We have to be Christians everywhere, not just in the pew of the church. Okay. Not just when you're reading your Bible or saying your rosary, whatever Christian action you do when you're praying. Okay. So that means we have to use our vote to establish the recognition of Christ's kingship and see that our land is ruled by Christ's laws and teachings. And this is not just, I claim I'm Catholic, vote for me, like Joe Biden and Pelosi do. This means you have to be truly imbued with all the teachings of Christ, from protecting children in the womb to defending your nation from foreign invasions, or and helping the poor, or seeing that the next generations have a future by promoting economic progress and growth. Okay. But defending unchanging morals, because Christ's morals don't change. Heaven and earth will pass away, but not one dot will pass from my teaching, he says. So this is why, if we don't have a Christian party to vote for, we can't exercise our vote. Because even if there was a candidate in a party that's not Christian, and he was 99.999999% like Jesus Christ, except he was in favor of abortion, you could not vote for him, because by voting for him, you're opening the door to the murder of millions of children. And that would be a violation of your loyalty to Jesus Christ. So a candidate can't be not as bad, or, he has to be, at least he has to be Christian in everything. If in the Middle Ages there was a republic where you could vote, and someone said, yes, I want to be the Doge of Venice, and for my candidacy, I propose legalizing abortion, they wouldn't have had a vote. They would have dragged the guy out and hung him from the nearest pillar as a monster of iniquity. Okay. And we've lost that knee-jerk kind of Christian reaction. I'm saying we should hang out all politicians now, but we should form a Christian party. So every Christian can then have the opportunity to vote for a truly Christian candidate, okay? And that's not going to happen unless you have a true Christian party, because in every other party, they just dangle things in front of your eyes. They'll put up a black candidate because they want blacks to vote. They'll put up a woman candidate, women to vote. They'll put up a Catholic candidate to get some Catholics to vote. It's just a game of theater to them, because they have no morals and they just want control. So we Christians have to have a different ethic in voting. If there is no perfectly Christian candidate, then your duty is not to vote. Your duty is then to found a party in which you can vote. So all these Christians out there say, well, if we only vote for the perfect candidates and we're not going to vote, then the worst guy is going to win. Okay. So, well, you've already allowed the worst guy to win, because are you in a Christian party? Are you voting for a Christian candidate that has a Christian platform? I mean, a truly Christian candidate and platform, not an organization controlled by Freemasons. If you're not doing that, then you've already allowed the evil people to win, because what's happening? The Masons control both major parties in the United States and most all major parties in the West. So whether you vote for one or not, you're maintaining the Masonic system. Now, how could you go to church on Sunday and say, oh, Lord, I believe in you, I'm loyal to you, and then go out on Tuesday and in November and vote to maintain a demonic Masonic system? You can't possibly do it. You'll be damned to hell. Okay. Now, a lot of voters don't realize what's going on, so we have to red pill them and wake them up. But once you understand this, it becomes an absolute question of your eternal salvation, whether you do or do not join a Christian party and vote for Christian candidates of a Christian party. Because if you don't, and you know this, then you're going to hell. Okay. And you'll go to hell not only for voting for the wrong candidate, you'll go to hell for not doing anything, because Negligence is a mortal sin. You can say, Lord, Lord, may you reign, may you reign. Let's sing hallelujah, may you reign on Sunday. On Tuesday, you don't go to vote because you didn't found a Christian party. So you're saying, I don't give a care who reigns in this world. So the option is not voting Democrat or Republican. Okay. And the option is not voting. The option is not voting. There's only one option for the Christian: to found a Christian party and vote Christian Party for America. That is the only option. Okay. There is no other option where you can save your soul. And let's be honest, there is no other option that's going to save our country, because both parties are insane. One wants to destroy it, and the other thing's destroying it is, well, not preferable, but if it happens, well, one is burning cities down, and the other's tweeting about how bad that is. And the followers of one just want to destroy every part of Western civilization that they can look at and create the most crazy rules. And the other side thinks, well, as long as he's tweeting about it, he's making America great again. And don't you say otherwise, or I'm going to unfriend you on social media. I mean, that's the level of civilization between these two parties. They are totally insane. Neither of them or their followers are fit to run our country. And they're certainly not fit to guide the course of our nation for the sake of our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come. They are destroying our nation. Okay. So Christian part of America is not a political preference. For the Christian, it is a divine, absolute obligation. It is a religious obligation, just as much as going to church on Sunday, because you have to be loyal to Christ in every part of your life. You can't have some part of your life where you're not loyal to Christ. You can't go to church and say, Lord, Lord, purity, honesty, integrity, chastity, and then, in your bathroom, keep pornography. You can't do that. That's hypocrisy, okay? So every part of your life, if you're for Christ the King, you have to be for Christ the King in all parts of your life. And any Christian who says, Lord, Lord, or the kingship of Christ on Sunday, and votes the Democrat Republican Party is no different than the guy who keeps a pornography in his bathroom and looks at it, okay, when he's on the John. They're hypocrites. They want Christianity in words, in a public appearances, and in church, but not at the ballot box. And if you don't want Christianity at the ballot box, and you don't see that your vote actually goes to establish Christianity in the ballot box, you are a Christian hypocrite, and you cannot be saved. Now, I think most Christians want to get to heaven. They want to serve Jesus Christ and want to get saved, but they have not heard this gospel. And this is the gospel of Christian politics, and it needs to be shared with everyone. So I'm beginning with this little Feverino, as we say in Italian, this little encouragement, so we can connect the dots from faith down to voting. It all goes together. It's simple. It's not complex.
With this, we should, talk about how to form the Christian Party of America chapter in your city or for your state. Well, one, you have to contact us saying we're from this such and such state and city, and then we'll get to meet with you and everything. But how can they form their local or state version for the party?
Okay, so it's not difficult. Hear what I just said about the connecting faith to voting. Okay, listen to it a couple times. Practice the argument. Remember the chief points, and then go visit people that you know in your town. Now, the best people to form a party are people who've been living in that same town for years. Everyone knows you. If you just move into the neighborhood, it's going to be difficult because no one knows you. And in politics, the best place to start a party is in your town where you've grown up and lived, because people know you. And when they see that you make that decision, it means a lot, okay? But whoever you are, however long you've been living, you can try to do it, okay? And I would recommend talking to those people you know who are devout Christians. And you may not get much traction talking to Catholic pastors because they're so off to the left now, but talk to all the Christian ministers in town. Tell them what I just told you and say, will you let me hold a meeting and talk to the people who come to your church or to your chapel or to ministry and about Christian activism? And you spread the message around, and people are going to wake up, because as soon as they hear the gospel, then the natural movement as a Christian is going to be, this is right, this is what we should be doing. Okay. And organize it locally, and hold meetings in houses after that, and build up a party organization, and then choose candidates, people who absolutely believe in this for their town. And think about, uh, for example, there are men in every town. There is always some things you can do that aren't being done, even though most towns don't, or cities don't have much legal ability to change anything because of the nature of the Constitution of the United States. It's a place to start, because if you dominate politically your town, then you control the county elections and the state elections. So it's very important. And uh, don't start with an issue like vote for us, and we'll see that there's a Christmas display on Sunday. I mean, on at Christmas time. I'm not saying that's not a good thing, but that isn't what a Christian party is about principally. Of course, you would do that if you're a Christian and you're in government. But you do things like see that the funding of the town for the schools doesn't go to teach children Marxism in the public school, okay? That it's going to support really poor families and not people that are living off the welfare system. That the police are arresting illegal aliens and seeing they're deported, and are cooperating with the federal authorities on that. There's a whole bunch of things you can do as a Christian party, but it's just being Christian, okay? So see that the contracts go to honest companies and not to companies that are promoting Marxism, okay? So in all the contracts that a city does in the town, find which of those companies supported Black Lives Matter, ban them. Just say you're banned because you supported insurrection, and our town is not going to support insurrection and the destruction of America. We love America. You declare your town, this is a town that loves America, okay? And so you ban all those organizations, so not a penny of the city money goes there. So there's all kinds of things you can do. And the beautiful thing about Christian Party America, be pro-life, be supportive of the Christian churches, be willing to bring your faith into the council meetings, into the mayor's halls, and in public acts to open with a prayer to Jesus Christ and praise Christ and name him in your acts, and promote Christianity in your town. Saying our government needs to promote Christianity in town because Christianity is the traditional religion of the United States. It's the foundation of all our laws. And we as a party, that's what we're going to stand for. And once you get elected, stand for that. So it's not difficult, okay? But it opens, because when you have true Christians in a party where they actually have to profess Christianity and live Christianity in political power, then the whole machinery of government starts working correctly. Okay, you don't hire a Wiccan lesbian to be your chief of police, and if that's who your chief of police is, you fire her, and then hire a decent Christian to be the chief of police. Okay, and then you might micromanage the police department to make sure that they're actually defending the U.S. law and not harassing people or involved in corruption and things like that. You have to go through the entire administration of the town and put everything back in order. That doesn't mean clean out corruption, but it might mean clean out corruption. Okay, just don't say, hey, I won the election and now I'm not going to do anything. No, then once you win the election, work begins, and it begins with public government and public education, because they're the two of the most corrupt institutions in the United States. But it can also be in other things too. Don't waste that money the way the previous parties wasted it. Used it to beautify your town, fix the water or electric systems, whatever the town can do and has problems to do. So a Christian always does what's necessary. Okay, that's the beauty of our religion. If we see it's necessary, like the man on the side of the road, then we do it. We don't avoid the problem. Okay, could be drug addiction in your town. If a Christian party comes into power in a city, it can exercise a lot of influence with all the churches and all the public and private institutions to end drug addiction, to get a town-wide system that as soon as anyone sees a drug dealer, they call the police and they pick the guy up and destroy drug distribution in their city or town. There's a lot of things to do. There's this level of initiative and this kind of community action doesn't exist because we don't have a Christian party. People are not going to say, I'm not going to want to call the Republican mayor because I don't like him, But with a Christian party, say, I'm going to call the Christian party because we're all Christians. We need to work together. Okay, that's our duty as Christians, not to fight with one another, but to work together. So it's not difficult. therefore, to found a Christian party. It's just be a Christian, talk to people, invite them, spread the gospel of voting as a Christian.
Yeah. Now we get to something we really need to. I mean, COVID-19 stuff.
Yeah, this is the exact opposite of what should happen. So, AJ, maybe you could describe just briefly the insanity of the COVID-19 and just how absolutely diabolic and unchristian it is the way they responded to this.
Let's see. Churches were shut down on Holy Week. Then the diabolical orders of pretty much shut down your entire states. I know in Kansas, the governor used their tyrannical powers to say only one person can ride in the truck. So if two people was riding in a truck, you would be pulled over and given a ticket for a fine. And so I couldn't go with my dad to the store. I couldn't, get out of the house unless I just wanted to walk on the farm. And so couldn't hardly do anything because everywhere people were freaking out because, well, had the fear mongering from the news saying all this nonsense. Then you have your churches closed on Holy Week, so you couldn't go to church, you couldn't go to confession. Still hardly can go to confession because it's still whacked out rules. And the COVID rules for mass is still in force, mask, gloves, whatever. Have to play wide receiver to catch our Lord.
What did they do in the stores? How did they affect how you shop and buy what you need?
It started with no mass here. They're like, go ahead. And all of a sudden, the news came out of the Arkansas for Walmart in Kentucky or whatever state Kroger's headquarters are out of, saying everyone must wear a mask who comes in. And all of a sudden, you had wait lines that you get in, so there's only like 2 or 3 people inside at a time. Then they were putting on limits on what you could buy. Toilet paper, you could only buy a few packages at a time, or certain meats you could only purchase 1 or 2 at a time. A whole lot to stock up, and so there was limits on food items, toiletries. I mean, it was just nuts.
It was right out of the apocalypse, I felt. These people are so insane. It happened even in Europe. Politicians who don't believe in Jesus Christ can, I think, as G.K. Chesterton says, if you reject Christianity, you're apt to believe every superstition. And this is a perfect example. You might claim that in the Democratic Republican Party they have Christians, but the scamdemic proved that they're not Christian, because the first thing a Christian does when he looks at nature, he says, this is God's gift, and it's a gift from a good God, and therefore it's good. And it's like Scripture says, there's nothing noxious on earth. God has not put death on earth in any substance. He has given us an immune system, and we get sick every year, and we get over it. And some people, it's a bit worse than others. But the statistics this past winter, show that it was no different. So the average Christian, of a believing Christian, would say, nothing's different happening, so I don't need to order the people to do anything different. It's not like everyone's dropping dead in the Black Plague, like 1 out of 3 were just popping off. So a Christian party would be a party where the politicians aren't afraid of the simple things of nature. Now, if you're afraid of the winter cold, you got something wrong with you mentally, or you're so whacked out because of your political ideology, because you're not a believing Christian, that you're a danger to society. And this is what these politicians did. These politicians are a danger to society. And so look at your crazy Kansas governor. She's not even from Kansas. She's from what? New York City, right?
Mhm.
It seems like all these nuts are from New York City. The Clinton family, the Trump family, the Kennedys, the Kennedys, and they're all from the Bushes, all from the New York City
Mhm.
area. So, how would a Christian party, you think, AJ, handle this?
One, we wouldn't force the mask. Two, we wouldn't be pushing this vaccine nonsense. We wouldn't put limits on the store. We wouldn't put limits on how many could ride with you in your vehicle. We wouldn't shut down the pubs. We wouldn't shut down the bars. We would not shut down the restaurants. We would keep them all open.
Would a Christian party allow these news channels to constantly terrorize people 24/7 with fake news?
No, we would we would have to have us. We would have to. I would say beef up to whatever their licenses are to make sure that only thing they put out is truth, no fear mongering, and none of this fake news crud.
I remember when I was reading about the 19th century, there was some horrible stampedes of people in crowded theaters because some crazy people liked to shout fire when there was no fire. And in consequence, nearly all the states of the union now have strict laws. If you yell fire in a theater, even if there is a fire, you could actually go to jail for several years for causing a panic. And if anyone should die in the stampede, you are guilty of murder, homicide. I think it's second degree. And I think that's what these politicians and news channels are doing. They're crying fire in a crowded stampede by they're saying there is a pandemic when there's not a pandemic. And that is the first thing. But they're resorting to this extreme fear because they have no confidence in nature. They don't believe nature is from a good God. Okay. So, does being a Christian make a difference in politics? It makes an absolute difference because when you're a believing Christian, you don't have to give your loyalty to Bill Gates or the vaccine industry or the Chinese government or whatever you're going to do because your loyalty has already been given to Jesus Christ. You don't have to sell your loyalty because your loyalty is already given in baptism, okay, in faith. And you shouldn't, and that's your duty. If you have any other loyalty, it's because the people voted you in, and it's to protect the people, first of all, not to exploit them. You don't get elected governor of a state so you can shear the sheep of the state. Christ warns pastors about that, who shear the sheep and not pastor them for the Lord. So I think this is one of their big problems. They're such irreligious people that they're willing either to sell themselves like whores, or they don't actually have hope in the future. Okay, so people like this, how can they govern? I mean, if they don't hope in the future, they think that future is, the undead, everyone's going to be dropping dead, then they're not good leaders. They can't possibly be good leaders. As a good leader, you have to have confidence in reality, in nature, and for the future to lead your people out of a problem, not into a problem that doesn't exist. It's just so, excuse my language, ass backward. But a Christian party, if it comes to power, also has to undo the wrong that's done because the wrong's done now. The damage has been done. Do you think the Democrat or Republican Party will ever undo the damage?
No,
Ever admit they had any fault?
no,
Ever prosecute any of their members for what they did?
nope.
Do you think they're more apt to make the pandemic a religion of fact that will be part of the state religion taught in textbooks and it will be excused for the next 100 years?
Yeah.
So how can we have justice? How can we have any kind of reparations for what was done without a Christian party?
Mm-hmm. Can't. So we need to do what was just done yesterday in Italy. The people sued the government
Yeah, in the region of Lazio, that's the area in which you find Rome, they sued the governor who decreed that all elderly over 65, everyone working in hospitals, and children would all get the vaccine once it's produced. He came out with this crazy decree in May. And so they sued him in a court, and the court ruled that he had no authority to mandate the vaccine for anyone. Okay. And not only ruled that he had no authority, ruled that no governor in Italy had the authority. And then it also put in doubt that the government of the entire republic not have the authority. So it was a big victory for Italy, and it looks like the obligation for vaccine will never come to effect in Italy because of this ruling, which can't be overturned. Okay, because it's an interpretation of law. In the United States, you can do similar things, class action suits. A lot of states were going to have very strict rules, and they sued them. In New York City, they were going to prevent anyone from going to church, but they allowed big demonstrations against Trump, and they were sued, and the court struck down all the limitations on the churches. But don't sue just for the limitations on churches. Sue to get all the limitations gone, and then sue the governor and your politicians for damages to businesses, suicides, death in elderly care homes because of the way they handled the epidemic or denied people care. Sue them for everything. Sue their bloody pants off. But the lawsuits aren't going to solve the problem because you have the same political parties in power, and they've shown themselves to be ideologically, religiously, psychologically, and morally unfit ever to rule again. They're completely bankrupt. They're dangerous. If you had a neighbor who was putting masks on his children and making them suffocate and stay away from one another, and spanking them terribly because they came within arm's distance of one another, you would call social services, and those parents would be taken away for being mentally sick, and the children would be taken away. We got to take the children away from the mentally sick politicians. We have to kick their parties out of power and put sane, good Christian parents in control of our nation, whether it's city, county, or state, or at the federal level, because the American citizens have just as much right to good, honest politicians as innocent children have to have good parents. Okay, that's just obvious. But even more so because while there is a certain natural justice that the parent alone should have care of his kids, I'm not advocating children being taken away from parents. Politicians have no obligation that we are their servants or that we obey them like little children. It's the exact opposite in the US Constitution. They're supposed to serve us, not us them. And they become tyrants. It's obvious they've become tyrants, or they've become so unconcerned about the people that they don't care that others are tyrants. So.
Yeah. Which brings up what's going on in Kansas right now. We get to the numbers. 3,500 jobs have been lost since the crazy rules by the governor, and the historic Brookville Hotel in Abilene, which survived all the outlaws, all the shootouts, all the bank robberies of the Wild West, is now closing its doors.
Probably survived all the depressions too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in different places around the world, they're estimating anywhere between 10 and 33% of all businesses are going to go out of business. And that was going to wipe out the middle class. And that is the intention of the global elite. They want to wipe out the middle class because they can have more control. They want you, that's why you were allowed to go to Target and Walmart and Home Depot, but you weren't allowed to go to Miss Josie Ann's country store. Okay, that's exactly why, because they want to destroy the little guy. A Christian party, and we mentioned this before in our programs, is about supporting the little guy. We want the little businesses because we don't want the rich to get richer. We want the middle class to get more, and we want the lower class to rise to the middle class. We want the middle class to become better off and well off. So you don't have to work 3 generations to get a house, okay? Like in my family, they emigrated 3 generations to go to the United States. And after 3 generations, what does the family have? They have 1 house. That's all they have. Okay. So, what's that? Well, it's the wealthy are so wealthy that they could buy, cities and states. Well, they're buying the leaders of the world to enslave everyone. So that's what they're doing, the wealth. not even thankful. But you will never have parties who have guilty members rectify this problem, because that would be to admit that they're at fault, and they will never admit they're at fault. The only way to punish these people is to have a party that opposes them, that admits that at fault. That's part of the Christian party platform has to be that this was a scam-demic, not a pandemic, and you are all going to jail for it. Okay. And we will not get justice, not in the courts. We will not get it in the legislatures if we vote Democrat and Republican. And if you vote Democrat, Republican, you are voting to condone all these crimes that were committed, because you're basically saying, I'm going to let the crooks get off.
Mm-hmm. So if there are good Christians out there in Kansas, contact the Christian Party for America. Go to the website christianpartyforamerica.wordpress.com to contact us. Go to the join up page, fill out the contact form, and let us know, because these 3,500 jobs affect all the little communities of Kansas, and affects the historical sites that's been here since Kansas was, even before Kansas was a state. That hotel was here before Kansas was a state.
And you know, Christian Party in Kansas can do a lot of good, because one of the big problems, there's two big problems in Kansas right now. Three problems: illegal immigration, organized gangs, and drug addiction. Okay. And these are problems all throughout rural America, wherever you go. And I don't know of it because I haven't lived in. I don't know of it personally because I haven't lived in rural America. I've lived in the Northeast. It's not really that rural, but I see it in articles because I've had relatives who are thinking of moving to rural America, and they run in time and time after these kinds of things. So Christian Party America for Kansas, or for middle America, or for rural America, is going to be a party that's going to solve these problems. And you don't solve them with the godless state. You're only going to solve them with Christian politics, okay? Because it's not just a problem, it's also a spiritual and religious problem, a lack of adoring Jesus Christ. Once the state obeys Jesus Christ, everything else is going to fall in order. But something has to be done about it, because the federal government's not doing anything. So the state police need to be organized to totally eliminate the gangs, just arrest them all. You need, kind of like how they handled Al Capone, by the way, was an Italian American. You just send out the guys and you arrest everyone. You know, where the police know where these guys' cash houses are, safe houses are, headquarters are. You just go arrest them all and you put them in prison, and then you sort it out later. As for the drug addiction, you have to start a complete moral renewal of society. Public education in rural America has to have a Christian element. Children have to be taught the Bible in public schools. They have to be taught, they don't need a health class to teach them how to have all kinds of different sex. They need a class on character and moral formation, where they learn about the virtues. They learn about character, integrity, honesty, virtue, the qualities of a good American citizen, the great moral traditions of America and the American people, and why things like taking drugs is just doing it yourself in. It's a form of suicide, just like getting addicted to cigarettes or anything. But even worse so. And outlaw thing. I don't care what the federal government says. Outlaw marijuana. Outlaw every kind of drug, and teach the kids to live upright and moral, and teach them to report on anyone who's selling this stuff. Break this bad habit. As for illegal immigration, the police should just go out and arrest all the illegal immigrants. Arrest them all. And they're not going to come to your state if they all start getting arrested. And the state can just put them on an airplane and fly them back to their country. Federal government can't stop that, because it's going from the state to another country. It's not going through other states. So be tough. And then a state that has a Christian party government, it can give a wonderful example, America. Because when a crazy federal law comes down, the state legislature can just vote a decree of nullification. They go, in virtue of the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, we declare that the federal government was never given authority to establish such a law, and therefore we declare it null and void and will not be applicable in the state of Kansas. And when you have states acting like that, the corruption in DC is going to break down because they can't bribe people in Washington to get their will anymore because the states will start resisting. If Kansas resisted, then you're going to have other states going to say, hey, Kansas did it, why don't we? And pretty soon you'll have a rebellion of the states against corruption, which will never happen if you vote Democrat or Republican, because the Democrats and Republicans don't want states to disobey what they're doing in DC, where they control America, where their parties control America for themselves and not for the American people.
Yeah. Also, not sure how important it is, but what the railroad did out this way that we found out, it took away our actual county seat, the town of Sheridan, away from the Sheridan County area. I mean, those towns need to have memorials, even refounded if it's possible. Just,
Yeah, a Christian Party of America do a lot for states because states need to have their own culture. The children in the state need to know their history. You have to understand that living in Kansas is different than living in Missouri, Nebraska, Ohio, Colorado. And it's very important to develop and promote this kind of regional pride because it helps you understand that it's important also to vote for good leaders in your own state. America shouldn't just be cookie cutter, every state the same. There are some great ways of cooking and eating and doing things that Kansans do that don't anyone else do. And they need to be put all back together. These are the things you teach in schools and to create the characters. Because when Kansas shows how different she is to everyone else, people will say, I'm going to go to Kansas because they do things there that they don't do in Kentucky. And this would make America beautiful and help promote a lot of good things. But there's also like some common sense. There's lots of federal laws that are good maybe for agriculture in Florida or maybe in Washington, but they're not applicable in Kansas. So why are they farmers in Kansas have to follow them? So a state that is run by a Christian party could say, regarding any federal law and regulation, not applicable in Kansas, nullified, 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 nullified. And then all of a sudden you'll have a beautiful flourishing of freedom because the state government in that case is just nullifying things that have no application to Kansas because Kansas is a sovereign entity. And according to the US Constitution, Kansas is a sovereign state. It can raise its own militia, revive the Kansas militia. It can raise its own Air Force. It can raise its own river boats, Navy. It can do everything a sovereign state can do. And it should exercise that. If you have a party that's controlled from DC, you're never going to have that. But a Christian party is not opposed to that because the Christian party is opposed to the beautiful order and independence and self-government of every level of society. Christian party isn't about controlling Christian churches and telling them when they're open. You let them be when they want to be open or not open. Same thing whether it's a synagogue or any other kind of meeting hall. Christian parties like, you do, that's your freedom. You do it. We're not going to tell you what to do. That not going to tell a store when it's going to be open or closed, or bar when it's open or closed. It's not going to tell people you can do this because it's not puritanical. Puritanism is a false form of Christianity. So Christian Party for America in rural America, in states like Kansas, cause a beautiful flourishing of the economy and of the culture and of the way of life, which you will never have from cookie-cutter parties that are controlled from New York City, who are imposing foreign, un-Christian values. A couple of weeks ago, we read about the effort the Presbyterians had to put in the US Constitution to recognize that Jesus Christ is the King. And they pointed out quite quickly, the opposition to this is coming from Europe, from people who've left Europe recently and immigrating here, who aren't even Christian themselves. They're saying where it's coming from. It's not coming from Kansas. But by voting Democrat and Republican, once those parties were taken over, your state was taken over. Okay. And the only way Kansans can take their state back, or Nebraskans can take their state back, or Missourians, or wherever, the only way that people in any state can take it back, and the only way Americans can take America back is through a Christian party, because you have to put everything in the right order. Once you recognize that Christ is your king, you're going to eliminate all other kinds of corruption. all the way down, okay? And therefore you won't be a party that serves other interests because you're already serving Jesus Christ. Well, we have no reason to accept your idea, your proposal. You want marriage to be defined between a dog and a cat? Well, since we've already given our loyalty to Jesus Christ, we're not going to hear even this absurd thing, because marriage is taught by Christ, and that's the end of it. If you don't like that, well, vote a different party. But our party's in power, so that's how we're going to do it. And that's the only way to guarantee, in a practical, effective way, that America will have a future. Okay, that America won't disintegrate, that it won't be burnt to the ground or destroyed by absolutely pathologically, morally perverse and totally psychologically incompetent people, which is what's happening to it.
Yeah. Just thinking how, don't know if you could even move the railroad. Just that one section of tracks out. It comes in and it swerves, and right when it swerves, there's where Sheridan was supposed it was.
Well, in modern times, there's really no problem having a city next to a train track. Okay, in the 1800s, they're afraid of people walking across the tracks and getting run over and hit because they didn't have modern soil. So, like we do here in the East, I'm not in the East now, but I was raised in the East. Excuse me. So they build viaducts, they build high walls, so that entire train line in the city is completely covered and concealed. You don't even know there's a train line going through the city because the train is not stopping ever in the city. It just goes in the underpass and it goes through its own tunnel and it comes out the other end. The town can sit right next to it. There's no problem. You don't even feel the train tremor the ground that comes through, because in modern times we have modern construction things. So there's no reason to close it down, a town down, or wipe it off the face of the map. And yes, these historical places should be built. Since I'm a cultural anthropologist, that's what I graduated in the University of Florida, I am totally in favor of rebuilding the old settlements the way they were any in the world. Because let's say you rebuild Sheridan the way it was in the 1800s, exactly the way it was. You put in shops there, you put in actors, you put in historians. People are going to come from all over because they're going to go to Sheridan in 1887, what it was like, or 1862, and it would be a history lesson. Students would come from all over America just to come. Imagine the business and economy it would create, and it would be a beautiful flower on the state of Kansas. And there's probably a lot of other famous spots there in Kansas. You could do the same thing. Why isn't any party doing that? Because they're controlled by powers that are not Kansas, that have no care for Kansas and want Kansas to be no different than any other state, because they want to be all equally controlled from Washington. You need a party that recognizes that local variation, independence, beauties, perfections, differences are all wonderful, okay? Just like the good God, when he created nature, everywhere you go in nature, there's something different, new, and beautiful in its own part of the world. Every part of the world has its own individual beauties and differences. The same, a Christian has that same aesthetic because he worships that same God.
Yep. Let's see here. I think we get that. Last one recently put out by the Republic of Artscat. Artask. They want recognition, so I'm like, okay. I put it into the news section on the party website. We recognize the Republic of Artsakh. So that would be our main international major platform.
Yeah, because if we think that it's good that Christians rule themselves in America, then we should also think in our foreign policy that it's good that Christians rule themselves everywhere else. And in the Republic of Artsakh, all they're doing is saying we're Christian and we want to rule ourselves as Christians. And every Christian people has that right. And once the Christian Party of America comes to power in the United States, we will no longer have a Masonic foreign policy that serves big oil or the Masonic Lodge. It will serve Jesus Christ and the liberty of Christian people everywhere. And you imagine, you know how many blessings are going to come to America once America serves Jesus Christ. Look at all the blessings we already have and we don't serve Jesus Christ. Once we serve Jesus Christ, we're going to have so many blessings, you won't be able to count them all. That's what's called making America great again.
Yep. Any last thoughts?
We got to act. We have to get out of this mentality where you just listen and do nothing. So I'm very glad for the active members in Texas, South Carolina, and Louisiana. I expect to hear from them in the next month that their accomplishments and getting out the word. But this is an invitation to everyone in every state and territory of the United States. We invite you all to found a local chapter of Christian Party America. Start it in your own town and all start working for it. We just don't 1 or 2 or 5. We want tens of thousands of you. Okay, so every Christian who hears this program is obliged to act. And don't think it's an option. And don't feel like you're betraying the Democratic or Republican Party because they have already betrayed you. Why do you have to remain loyal to them? You would be an idiot to keep serving them. Okay. And a lot of people just want to live a lie because they haven't begin to think that the narrative is just completely false, you know. But just start asking them questions. What have they done for us? Okay. And what have they done to us? And everyone will agree they haven't done anything for us, and what they're doing to us is terrible. So we need a radical break, and let's start something new. And let's do what our duty has always been as Christians, which we have never done, because we need to preach the gospel of you must vote as a Christian, okay? And you must, if you don't have something you can vote for as a Christian, you have to create that possibility. That's your duty too. We have the freedom to start political parties in America. Therefore, we have the duty to found Christian Party for America.
Yep, totally agree. So please like and share this program on BitChute, YouTube, Mixcloud. Get the listens up there again, folks. We dropped way back down to almost 0 on the last few programs on Mixcloud. So please listen to these programs, share the programs on and off social media, use your email, WhatsApp, whatever app you use. Just get these programs out there and act. So to join, to start up your own party in your state and to be part of the national party of the Christian Party for America, go to christianpartyforamerica.wordpress.com, and it's real simple. Go to the join up page, follow directions on giving us a short little resume in the contact box. Then we'll get you all lined up on when and what meeting you can attend, depending what your work schedule is and everything. So Christian Party for America.wordpress.com, and the 4 is FOR, so Christian Party for America.wordpress.com. And tomorrow we're going to be taking a little break. We'll be resharing the Lepanto show for the anniversary of Lepanto. Then we'll come right back, hitting the Masonic Lodge hard with the next maybe 2 chapters of Anthony Sutton's book on Wall Street in the rise of Adolf Hitler. And this is Order Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.